Welcome to the Spotlight on Marketing, brought to us by Armstrong Lloyd, and I'm your host, Karen Lloyd. And today we are joined by Charlene Ignacio. Charlene is a renowned marketing authority and visionary leader in the tech and MSP space. As founder of Fornix Marketing and champion of MSP Trusted Advisors movement, her ability to demystify complex marketing strategies and align organisational objectives has made her a revered figure and a catalyst for change. Charlene has curated an unrivaled legacy of marketing businesses for commercial success through using marketing strategies, which makes her an ideal guest for us on the Spotlight on Marketing. Welcome.
Oh, thank you, Karen, for having me. And thank you so much for allowing me to be here with your partners and friends. And I hope to share this with all of my partners and friends in the US and the world. Thank you.
I also thank you because it's very early morning where you are in Utah and it's midday for us here. So we're rather lucky that we have actually got some sunlight. But it's great. I know that you're very globally focused and you're coming to the UK soon. So let's start by telling us what's bringing you to the UK and Europe in the summer.
So, what's really fun is we've been up through the UK, through Manchester, through London, Italy. I mean, it's just been a great experience being there with all of our new friends. And this summer, we're actually going to be doing a couple of road shows with other technology conferences, some of our partners who are coming in from Ireland. And so we're really excited about coming back and just getting time to ride the train and seeing everything.
Brilliant. And what sort of topics will you be covering in your road shows?
Oh, yes. So we're going to be talking about GDPR compliance. We will be talking about global partners. We have some going from the US into the UK market. And then we have some of the UK, France, Italy coming from their markets into the US. So it's a fun couple of weeks that we'll be planning to be there in the EMEA market and just seeing everyone.
And will the people coming be marketeers, or what's the sort of background of the people attending your roadshows?
Oh, these will be CISOs, some of my CEOs, and then some of our partners. So we've got CompTIA as one of our global partners that we work with and endorses our trusted advisors. We have the MSPAA, which has, a global position where they want to make those inroads with different partners in the world. So we're excited. We have lots of moving parts.
Yes. Oh, it sounds like it's going to be fantastic. So, I wish you all the best for that. So, well, tell me, I know you're really, really passionate about the managed service space. So, what attracted you to this sector in the first place?
There's a couple of things that's been really heavily considered in this new evolution of our managed service providers or regulators where you are, is that it was cool before everyone else found that it was cool. 30 years ago, the world was still dealing with compliance at some degree, some level, some governance. And now with the recent COVID and the world really spotlighting, compliance, it's been so neat to see how everyone now is paying attention. And I feel like they're the heroes that are just behind the scenes, making things work and operate and protecting us all from what we consider, dangers from ourselves and from people who are trying to hack into our multiple systems, and data is the new gold. And so they are the heroes that is fighting the good fight.
Fantastic. And in this space, what would you say is the sort of most overlooked marketing tactic that drives the commercial growth? What do you think people are lacking?
A lot of times we are not focused on the people-to-people relationship. And that's what's really hard, because a lot of times people are transactional. And I've really, really focused on focusing on the human connection, the person-to-person relationship, educating, supporting, being able to support that vendor or partner so that they understand that this is about the people you're serving with your solution, with the tool that you've created. It's the people relationship that I think we miss quite often.
Absolutely. And, diving a bit deeper in that. So obviously the people to people relationship, but what about how does that work? How have you managed to bring that together?
What's really great, and Karen, I'm sure you've seen this quite a bit. We have really, really smart, engineers. We have really, really smart technical CISOs. Very well, well certified. They've got every accolade. They've got tons of education, and yet they don't know how to translate it so that they can connect on a human level. applying it to why a business needs to be compliant, understanding why there needs to be cybersecurity training and awareness. And so the bridge that I've created in my framework that we'll talk about in a little bit here, I hope, with just understanding that we want to take what you know in your solution and the technical aspect of it and translate it so it's not just tech heavy and tech knowledge. It's more, how do I apply it? How does it matter in my environment? How do I stay compliant with ESG? How do I stay compliant with GDPR? How do I focus in so that my organization is being compliant overall and doing its very best to do that?
And would you say your framework, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, but would you say your framework is only relevant for the MSP space, or would you say it's relevant for any global technology company?
Any global technology, MSP, MSSP, cybersecurity, VAR. I mean, they're integrators. It's just part of what I consider is a foundational piece. We talk about security baseline. I think this is the framework baseline for companies of any size at any in part of the industry that can use this framework of control that really will help them govern hitting the target for revenue growth, for communicating, to being a strategy that will help them grow without making it feel such like a heavy lift. And this has been proven as we've launched this with many industry leaders and partners.
Fantastic. So come on, let's, I'm dying to hear about your framework. Tell me, let's briefly outline it, and also be interested in how you actually came up with the framework, what inspired the framework.
So there are 5 framework steps, and this framework is used as a foundation to help an MSP or integrator regulator to communicate what their solution will do for their customer and client or vendor or technology or a SaaS product. And it's been proven over time that it's a foundation baseline for all business.
Do you want to give an example of a company that you've walked through that framework, and if you can, without telling anything secretive about those companies, and just walk about into context each of the 5 steps and tell us how it works? That would be amazing.
Yes. So let me explain a little bit about this client. Wonderful technology. The CTO developed it after having been working on government top-level communications. And so when he came to me, he said, Charlene, I'm really good at having worked at Lenovo. I'm really good at being an engineer. And I'm excellent at creating products and doing the things that need to happen. And I said, okay, well, tell me more. And he said, well, this tool that I've created can help us create communications in a secure way so that you don't have to be on a server like, an ATT or some global communication platform, that we can really own the conversation. And I said, well, that's great. Very new technology, very different, something that people aren't familiar with. And so you have to understand, Karen, that's a great example of a lot of technology that's coming into the space, something new. People don't understand it. People are trying to understand how it applies to their compliance, right? And so this framework of control that he's like, sure, I don't know how to do this. I said, don't worry. I have a go-to-market, a marketing framework that we can use for you that's going to win every single time. And he said, okay, that's great. That's a big relief for someone like me. And guys, he was so technical that I love how brilliant and smart he is, because he's so good, but he couldn't really get that to the market. He'd be the only one in the room knowing how awesome he is. When you look at a framework of control, guys, like GDPR, I'll use GDPR because I know that's important to the UK market. Even our Swedish partners. I mean, it's what governs all things. It allows us to create a baseline where everyone comes to the middle and says, we will all be compliant based on these specific frameworks of control. And that in that framework of control, everyone's doing the same thing for the same reason. And our threshold of compliance, right, in our business or in our organization, everyone understands what they have to do. And that's what's powerful about having a unified framework of control, right, Karen? I mean, this is very successful in this market. Where we come from, there are multiple frameworks of controls. And so you might have a country like the US, and we've got over 200 controls governing multiple industries. And so you've got a couple of facets here in CMMC, and then you've got another, with WISP, and then, okay, now you've got HIPAA. And so it's really allowing everyone to be on the same page. And that is the intent behind the framework of control that I've developed. And so the MSPs are just so powerful because now they can understand how they can become that trusted advisor in their client environment, in leading different teams. And so when you're using marketing to go to market, guys, with your product or service, I just want to make sure that you know that you are brilliant. And I understand, but I can translate it and Karen can translate it, but half of the world won't understand it. And so this baseline of what I consider a framework of control for marketing, especially in our industry, allows you guys to get really clear on delivering the right product. So here's the 5 functions of the framework of control. First is defining the problem. You created such a great technology or a great solution or a great patch, and you're like, okay, how does this work? First part of the framework is to define the problem. And what that means is I want you to have 5 to 7 things that you have solved because of your solution. Now, this is really hard for a lot of people who are very tech savvy. They're like, well, sure, of course, this is what I'm doing. I'm like, no, when you define the problem, it has to matter to your customer. Is it helping them be compliant? Is the problem that they need to, lower their cybersecurity insurance? Is the problem that they have a vendor due diligence? They have to make sure that a vendor coming into their environment, that they're doing their part in order to make sure that, hey, vendor, you're coming into my environment. These are the things that you need to do in order for this to work for us. And so the problems that come are so critical for us to define in this first part of the framework of control, because it will allow us to then deal with what I consider the evolution of success, especially in our tech and cyberspace, guys, because they need to know what to do. We need then to do, and the second part of this is define what that customer needs are. The reason why that's critical is because you solve a problem, the customer has to be able to say, this is going to be a line item budget that I'm going to give money to and time and resources to in order for me to use this. Now, I want to make sure I talk about penetration testing. Karen, that is very, very big in the world. It has now become the top of the spear when I think about any type of framework. It has to have a pen test that's part of it. And a lot of times industries will require a monthly pen test because your environment changes the second someone downloads an app, the second someone comes into your environment, and they're bringing whatever that is into your environment that now you have to manage. Okay. So let's use penetration testing. A customer needs a penetration testing, depending on the frequency, of course, and what compliance they have. They need to use penetration testing as that, what I consider evaluation or assessment of their environment. And if you need to define the problem, which is they need to be compliant. Second is, what does the customer need? The customer cannot perform their own penetration testing. Why? It has to be a third party that has no bias. It can't be the same red team, blue team, because it creates what I consider the unfortunate fact that you might not get a true assessment of the environment, because the red team might say, hey, don't go test this. These are the things that we're working on. Or the blue team might say, hey, don't test this because these are the things that we're working on. And that is not a true assessment. You have to allow everybody to be tested in order for us to get a true picture of that person's environment. So customer owner needs. Third part of the framework. What does this security provide with having this solution? Okay, security solution. I'm going to use penetration testing just because I know that everyone understands the value of a penetration test. When you look at a penetration test, right, and you get the report, you're looking at it and going, here are the things that I need to fix, the remediation, the right of boom. These are the things that your customer is asking you to say, how do we get there? You might say you can't afford to be at a 30% compliance. You need to be up at 80, 90 and get close as possible to 100. But the client can't figure that out. They don't have all of the resources all at the same time to maybe replace the servers. They may not have the opportunity to hire another L1, L2, L3. They just can't do everything at the same time. So what you want to do is provide what are the security benefits? What are the security aptitudes? What are you doing to help them secure so that they're compliant with whatever framework of control that they have to follow? So really powerful, Karen, because it makes it common ground. Now I can talk to the business owner and communicate to them what needs to happen. Now, here's something powerful, guys. Any partner solution. I run a couple of channel partner programs globally, and it's been great to run them. But something that's really important if you're trying to attract an MSP as a vendor, or you're trying to attract maybe more VARs, it's really important to communicate what is the MRR aspect of your solution. How are they winning to increase the revenue and value of their business? Karen, I don't know about you, but for us, M&A is a humongous thing. I have lots of partners who are coming internationally into the US market to acquire MSPs because it is hot. And so guess what, MSPs, you need to increase MRR. And if your partner is not communicating this to you, it's really hard for you to want to pick up that product. And so partners, vendors, I need you to communicate more in this framework of success is what is your promise of how much money they're going to make? How are you going to help them get there? What is the business aspect of making this easy for them so that they can communicate this to their customer? And Karen, 9 out of 10 times, the partners who follow this framework of control will literally be able to launch in less than 90 days. This doesn't mean a 12-month marketing strategy. Karen, last part of the framework. This is the 5th step and the most important. As you build out your go-to-market strategy, as you build out, what does this look like? How do I make sure that I'm succeeding? Karen, this is 100% repeatable success. Have you ever worked with someone who says, I just want lightning in the bottle? And I'm thinking, okay, you want lightning in the bottle. All right, do you have the budget to go lightning in the bottle strategy? Do you have the resources to have this lightning in the bottle idea? And a lot of times those are very, very rare, far and few between. So the last part of the framework, guys, is what is ultimately going to be the value as well as the perceived value to the customer. And so we call that the benefits to the customer, because perception a lot of times will be reality for your customer. And so if you're a partner selling to an MSP, you need to be able to explain what are the benefits to that partner that you're bringing on. But when you're selling your product or service to a customer who is saying, I need this compliance for my business, I am being regulated with these things because I'm in financial services, so I need to have a pen test, I need to have a WISP, you're saying to yourself, well, let me communicate this to you. And I'll use an example, Karen, that we did with a client of ours. His tool spits out a report and it gives you a score. This score, and this is really awesome, this score tells you exactly where the organization is in the compliance, okay? But it actually is an executive summary that allows him to communicate to the customer, here's all the things that you need to focus on. So in your next boardroom meeting, you can go ahead and ask for a specific budget because you can show where the framework that you're, either selling or compliant to has to follow in its threshold. And for him, the reason why that part was developed in the report and why we had to tweak it before we went to market is because the benefit to his customer had to be so clear that they could take that document and go to the financial officer and say, we need this budget in order for us to be compliant and for us to be in business. We need to do these things to help us be maintaining our security. And Karen, it was such a hit that we were able to be integrated with a couple of our big partners, ConnectWise, Acronis, names that you guys would totally know in the EMEA market. And why was that successful when we went to market, guys? Because he was so clear on what the benefit to his customer was. He didn't have to try and drown them out with technical jargon. He actually said, here's a business benefit, and this is the reason why you're going to be able to use my tool to do that. And so this is quick, this is repeatable success, and it's something that functions so that the whole team is on the same page, Karen. I just love how successful this tool has been.
No, it's amazing. And what do you mean by lightning in a bottle? I don't think that's a phrase I've ever come up with.
Oh,
What is another way of describing that?
so lightning in a bottle is really rare. So in the terms of like impossible, people say, "Oh, that idea was lightning in a bottle. It's impossible. It's just
Okay.
like so unheard of. It's so new that a lot of people, and I don't know, Karen, you know how your clients and partners are, but a lot of times they're looking for the best big thing." And I'm like, "Okay,
Yes.
that's great. You want the big best thing, but what if I could give you a repeatable success?"
I think one of the challenges we're facing is that sometimes the product either isn't good at sort of delivering or doesn't deliver what it says it delivers. So the customer is then underwhelmed by the product, and then
Yes.
the customer doesn't stay. And then, and then there's a long-term cycle of the customer then leaving, and then the salespeople have to go out and find more people and more leads, and it trickles. And that's when, that's where I think a lot of companies have fallen foul, probably in the last 18 months, particularly. And I don't know whether your framework deals with that as well.
Oh, yes. And that's the reason why this framework is critical, right? If you can't define the problem with your solution and you can't go through what the customer needs, and you definitely don't have your promise in place with what the benefits are, and you're not helping that customer increase their revenue, if you don't touch every single framework, you're not going to be successful. It helps everyone get on the same page. And Karen, I love that you brought up that experience, because wouldn't it be great if they had a framework to follow first before they went into the market, so that they could fix these problems before they launched and actually hurt their reputation,
Yes.
and all that money and effort doesn't help them. I'm so sad for them, because it was like a false start. It was like a poor launch. They could have avoided that by following a framework just like this.
Yeah, and in some instances, the company might be a couple of years old and they've won a few logos to boot. So, but
Yes.
sometimes it is just to do that their product promise doesn't align with what their product delivers. Do you touch on that as well with your framework? Would you say your framework, or
Oh,
anything you
yes.
do post framework?
Yes, it does. And here's an example. So we tell our clients, "I'm going to break your product before it ever goes to market." And they're like, "What does that mean?" I said, "I can't have a product out there that's not going to be aligned with what it promises it says it does and what it actually does." And so when I take this framework, I actually can go and pre-launch and actually go through it. And then I'll say, "Great, here's all the problems we need to fix." So that during launch, we can understand, all right, we're going to break, we're going to bend, we're going to just force you to see, client or CEO or, dev team, what needs to happen in order for us to have a successful third part of the process, right? Is true launch, adaption to the market. That piece is all contingent on the pre-launch. And that's why this framework can be used at any stage, whether you're an 18 year old company to a startup that's launching, or maybe you're an enterprise and you're trying to pivot because you're trying to get into other markets. You can use this framework no matter what.
Okay, so we've used your framework. We've got there. We've launched. We're going to market. So what's the next step after that framework? What's the next step for a company?
In that part of the framework, right, you're launched. You're benefiting
Yep.
the customer is winning. This is where the technical team can take this same framework and say, "Team, when they have problems, when they are anticipating maybe a 2.0, 3.0 version of it, you go back through this. Are we defining the problem? Are we letting people know what the problem is that we're solving for them? Are we clear that our next version or evolution of our solution will communicate these things?" So it aligns sales and marketing, customer service, development teams. Karen, it's so powerful when a whole team is aligned. Have you ever worked with a client where the sales team and the marketing team are always at odds? And it just feels like, gosh, we're never going to get there because these two groups just can't get aligned.
Completely. It's one of the common pain points of anyone working in marketing and sales. Actually, you need both. Both parties could be frustrated. And what's your key secret for alignment? What would you do to make sure that they're both aligned?
Well, sales leads marketing. That is one of our founding principles of any go-to-market that we do for our clients is that we do everything based on the sales process and how they go through an SQL, sales qualified lead, so that we understand what sales needs to have so that our MQL or our marketing qualified lead in our process matches that so that they're aligned. Because my relationship with the CRO is so critically important because I have to help them hit their goal. So I let them know, in order for me to get you SQLs, my MQL strategy has to match. And this framework is what we're going to follow. And they said, great. So we're going to be selling what? You're selling the problem that we solve, which helps them qualify the appointment, helps them understand and communicate the solution that we're selling. And 3, helps them increase the possibility of closing the deal, because we're not just going out there and transactioning with everyone. We're actually listening. We're actually defining the problem. We're talking about the people we're serving. That helps marketing increase its visibility and its quality of leads so that sales now has to close. And Karen, here's the rule. Marketing is not responsible for closing the deal. And that is what we always get blamed for in marketing. I'm like, we're not the one closing the deal. We're the one just teeing it up. And if you're going to close it, that's a sales function. We are not in the sales function role of closing a deal. And that's why marketing gets blamed all the time. And I say, nope, here's the line. We don't pass that line. That's your job.
I think there's things you can do though early in the process, and I think your framework works with it because obviously, if sales have introduced somebody into if marketing have introduced somebody to speak to the sales team and the person's irrelevant, or they don't have the power, they don't have the sign off, they don't have the need, then they can waste an awful lot of the salesperson's time, and then the deal doesn't get closed. So I think it's those early onset like personas and framework part at the beginning that really does build that in. And if you don't have that, then you don't have that ability to transact it through to the end. So I completely get and understand what you've done. Now, I think your framework's brilliant actually, and I think it gives people, particularly starting up, or maybe someone who's at a point where they're kind of a little bit locked into where they're doing and they're not sure what they're doing. It's a great sanity check to go back, isn't it? Because you could be, as you say, an 18-year-old company and then be like, we were doing really well at one point and now we're not, and it may be that our audience has changed or our customer has changed. Is there anything you particularly like to anything you'd like to, that you haven't had time to say at the moment, any other bits you'd like to put in?
You know, Karen, I appreciate that. There's just one more thing, guys. If there was anything that I would say, is that the goal of how I build this framework and you using this framework does not mean you're going to make this Herculean effort to change. What I want you to do is do 1 to 2 things really, really well. So just start where you are, make the adjustments, and then work through the framework and then see where you could do better. A lot of people, Karen, will see my framework and go, oh, this is so stressful. I feel overwhelmed. And I say, that's what it takes. It has to take some change, but please don't try to change everything all at the same time. Just pick 1 or 2 things that you could do better. And Karen, if that is the one thing that I always want to say, is start where you are, adjust 1 to 2 things, and then improve, right? Evaluate, and then repeat again. And then you'll see it change versus, well, Shar said, don't do this. And I said, I didn't say that. I said, let's look at the whole process and then make some adjustments, because a lot of people will get stuck in the overwhelm in just feeling like, well, great. Now we've got to, kill everything we're doing. I'm like, no, there's good. I'm just trying to help you get there faster by making these small changes along the way.
Exactly. And in marketing, there is no silver bullet. As we said, there's no lightning in the bottle, is there? There's no one thing that works every single time. And it's about test and measure and improving and seeing if that works. If that doesn't, we've changed one thing, now change another. And I think that's the key that, to the people I, understand that's the difference in marketing. That's the magic.
You are such a great leader because you understand that. And so the people you serve, they benefit because of your experience and because you get it. And so they're lucky to have you. A lot of people aren't like you. You're so experienced. You're so well-versed.
Oh, thank you. That's really kind of you to say. Thank you. That's all we have time for today on today's episode of the Spotlight on Marketing, brought to us by Armstrong Lloyd Marketing Recruitment Specialists. I want to thank our guest today, Charlene, for joining us and sharing her invaluable insights and perspectives on driving successful marketing strategies. If you'd like to speak to Charlene, please do reach out on her LinkedIn and website. Both links are going to be included in the show notes. And if you've enjoyed this podcast, it'd be really helpful if you'd leave us a review on the platform you're listening to. But thank you so much for your time and support. I really appreciate it. All the best until next time.